Hey, welcome back to Evil's Comics. I'm Evil Mike, and I got a review for you today. Today we're going to be talking about Image Comics Hitomi, issue number 5. It is written and created by H.S. Talk, art by Isabella Mazzanti, colors by Valentina Napolitano, letters by Rob Jones, and then we got this awesome cover by Carlos Lopez. Before we get started on the review, please like, comment, subscribe. It's all free, it doesn't cost you anything, and it's just interaction between me and you, right? Let's talk about the comic. So to catch you up, basically, Hitomi had joined, she was forced to join a Japanese army after, climbing the ranks in that army and showing that she was a lot better than the other soldier candidates. She was given a near impossible task by their lord to assassinate the other lord on the opposing side, Lord Rue specifically. At this time in the book, Yusake, her master at this point, had heard about her assassination attempt and is trying to warn the other side. And that's kind of where we start out this book. Yusake is at Lord Rue's castle. He is being greeted by the security forces doing their job, and basically they don't recognize Yusake. He kind of mentions that they're young and that's why, but he should be recognized. He's kind of well known. Eventually, after convincing the guards that he has some kind of news during this wartime event for the Lord, they do take him to Lord Rue. Upon getting there, Lord Rue recognizes him and calls him by another name that he's known by, Nightmare. But basically, he is allowed to talk to Lord Rue in common fashion, and Yusake tells Lord Rue about the oncoming assassination attempt by his pupil, Hitomi. Basically telling him that she's been misled and being misused by the other army. And we get this kind of like cliffhanger, and it's basically Lord Rue telling Yusake that it's already too late, that it's kind of already happened. The information it's already been done. We go backwards and we kind of see what happened, and it's basically Hitomi, and she somehow has entered Lord Rue's sanctuary. She basically is, entering in his sanctuary with the same kind of guys, telling the guards that she has some news for Lord Rue, and she's trying to get as close as she can, and she gets pretty close. Basically claiming that she's a farmer, that she heard some news about an oncoming assassination attempt, and as soon as she gets within arm reach, she pulls a gun and literally tries to kill him. At the very bottom, you see like the boom! But she falls short. Couple inches short. She misses, and it ends up shooting right next to his head. After this, Lord Rue's personal guard tries to, capture Hitomi, which they end up doing. Lord Rue is actually impressed. It doesn't go the other way. The guards want to kill her, and then Lord Rue is like, look, she was able to not only get past all her guards, but make it into my inner sanctum, and she almost killed me. Maybe we can use her, and basically he sends Hitomi to his son, the prince, in hopes that she'll teach him some kind of samurai secrets or something like that. At this time, they jump back to present time, and Lord Rue is basically explaining that Hitomi has already tried the assassination attempt, and she has been sent to with his son, Prince Ogden, and now basically they're kind of capturing Yusake and putting him in prison. While they do this, there's some mention of that they're not even going to bind him and put him in handcuffs because his appearance is old, which they end up making their fatal mistake, because Yusake ends up getting loose and he ends up killing these two guys and leaving the prison area trying to find Hitomi. We jump back over to where Hitomi is, and she has already been taken to Prince Ogden with his personal security, and it's being explained why she's there. She's there to teach the prince some samurai secrets. Hitomi just mentions that this guy can't learn anything. Basically, you can't teach an old dog new tricks kind of thing. And the prince gets mad and sends her into this dope-looking maze of dreams, it's called. Upon entering the maze of dreams, she is quickly blow-darted, drugged, and at this point, the maze gets its name. She starts hallucinating in this crazy fashion. She walks over to the statue. The statue starts coming alive, trying to attack her. Of course, all this is hallucinations. Eventually, she does get to a part in the maze where she falls into this pit, and it's supposed to be a pit of snakes shown there, but we quickly find out it's not really a pit of snakes. But she has this flashback moment where she's greeted by her mother while she was younger, getting a bath. She calls out for her mother a couple times, and her mother doesn't answer. I'm assuming at this point that's kind of what cracks her out of this dream, because we do find out it's not a pit of snakes, it's a pit of a giant snake. There's a big ass snake down there, about a python or something, and during the dream it tries to attack Hitomi. Hitomi comes to her senses and quickly kills the massive anaconda or whatever the heck's down there. She quickly crawls out of the pit and is quickly met with another obstacle, this massive ass dope looking Bengal tiger. The Bengal tiger and her eventually try, and they basically fight off. It looks at one point like she's getting eaten. Again, this is all hallucinations. I don't know if the tiger is really there, but eventually at this point, Yusaki does show up, and he kind of snaps her out of it by calling her her main nickname, Wolf Slayer. At this time, not at this time, but I think he's been following her the whole time. He's kind of probably the real person that's been attacking Hitomi, but it's Prince Ogden's personal guard. There is a samurai showdown between the two, and eventually Yusaki does overcome this guy. He doesn't end up killing him, but he does end up throwing sand in the guy's face, telling Hitomi to run off as he's distracted. Hitomi does end up running off. She finds this cool dragon statue, and as she sees it, that's where she finds her final obstacle, and it's the prince. The prince does this crazy thing that I did not expect. He's got this mask, and if you see right here, it is actually Yusaki's face. He literally has a mask to look like her mentor. But this actually presents a kind of clear and present situation for her, right? This whole journey has been about Hitomi getting revenge on the people that killed her family, which incidentally is Yusaki. He was hired back ago by a lord or something like that to take out, the enemy or something like that, and he ended up taking out her farm. It was something that he highly regrets. But at this time, she finally gets to kind of, put a closure to the situation by fighting this prince that's dressed like Yusaki. Being weaponless, she eventually overcomes Prince Ogden by taking his own weapon. Yusaki has to run up at the last moment, telling her, do not kill the prince. If you do this, you'll always be on the run. You'll never have a peaceful life. You'll never have that, and she's like, screw that. She does end up killing the prince, stabbing him in the chest, leaving him for dead. And at this time, they basically run off. Hitomi does state that she's finally free, and she kind of holds that mask up that looks just like Yusaki, but she's kind of completed her mission in a sense. Like I mentioned, after that the guards run up and they're like, oh my god, she killed the prince after her. They're not even worried about Yusaki, they just leave him there. While they run after Hitomi, Hitomi runs into the woods. Eventually she gets surrounded, and not to mention she's still hallucinating. But she starts fighting off the guards that come after her. Yusaki comes to her side, and eventually they use one of the first lessons that Yusaki had taught her, that a lot of battle is about math and stuff like that, and 3-on-2 is not bad odds kind of thing. They do eventually overcome all the guards with no fatal injuries or anything like that. Of course, during the fight with the prince, Hitomi did end up breaking her arm, but of course she didn't have any weapons. She did that all weaponless and hallucinating. We get this brief conversation as they're walking away about how you know, Hitomi is always going to be on the run. You know, this attempted assassination, you're always going to be an outlaw kind of thing, and you know, while you're in Japan kind of thing. She mentions, like, after he says all that, that basically he had a good teacher, and it was kind of like all the things that he was like kind of on the run for, you know, because he was, you know, went through being a slave and then being used as this, and I mean, he had kind of a spotty past himself. The very last page we get is them going to a harbor and boarding a ship to China, basically saying that while they're in Japan, they'll never be, you know, they'll never have a good life, so they're going to go try it in another country. And Hitomi actually says one of the coolest things, like, of the own book. But Yusaki mentions that he's like, I'm sorry you have to leave your homeland. And she's like, you know, I left my homeland a long time ago, and it happens when, you know, it happened when she lost her family. At this point, she's all been on this mission, and, you know, it's becoming a samurai, getting close to what she needed to do to complete the mission, and she's been on that the whole time. But at the very end, she praises Yusaki, and it's this little line right here, while they're on the ship, and basically stating that that she had a very good, you know, teacher. She was all like, and she mentioned something, I know that I'm heartless, but on my own admission, and she's basically like, hey, you know, I learned it from my master kind of thing. And that's where the book leaves us off. There is no hint at a volume 2 or to be continued, nothing like that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's not going to happen. But now that I'm done with the review, let's get into some final thoughts. Right, I loved it. I love the art. This book feels like an old, like, federal, you know, feudal Japan story. Everything lines up with me. You know, it just feels like that old school, like, you know, like Ronin story or a samurai story, but a romanticized version of it, and I love it. The whole hallucination part, I mean, you talk about grasping the concept of Japanese art kind of thing. And I'd like to mention that not a lot of these people are Japanese by nature. I think, if I'm not mistaken, most of these people are Italian. Artist and the writer and the letterer, and but you talk about something that actually, you know, feels, and I mean, the whole story and everything. But I love the whole journey, where we started with you know, Hitomi, how it ended with Yusaki. I was kind of almost at the point where I was anticipating Hitomi was going to have to go after Yusaki, because that whole, like, you know, you killed my family thing. So I was really happy about the resolution, about the prince putting on the mask kind of thing. It's a fantastic series, and the only thing I can say, the only downside is we didn't get like a hint at you know, another journey with Hitomi and Yusaki. Hopefully volume 2 will be titled like Hitomi and Yusaki, the continuing journeys, or something like that. I would love for this to be a continuing series, but if it is just a mini series and this is all we got, it was fantastic. Start to beginning, it was a complete story, exactly what I want in a story. We got a beginning, a middle, and an end. Everything was great about it. The art is fantastic, the lettering was on fire, and the colors, man, were just popping. I don't know, that's my review, guys. Let me know what you thought about it. I have a lot of you know, a lot of passion for old school samurai, you know, Japanese tales, and this definitely is going to be a highlighted story from here on out. But that's what I got for you guys. That's my review. I'll let you go. Happy Saturday. I'll see y'all guys later.